an act, the Veterinary Professionals Act 2024, and amend or repeal various acts. Basically what this act is doing, it's replacing the Veterinary Act of 1989. So I said this morning that we are also in favor of this. The Veterinary Act needed renewal. One thing that the government, we have many things to oppose this government on. They have made many mistakes, some grave ones. They have had to rescind many pieces of legislation. I think they hold the record on rescinding legislation. But they have on this act, and I said it this morning, at least on this act, which we support, they did full consultations. And they took this piece of legislation seriously, and I commend them for it. And that's one of the reasons why we are supportive. And veterinarians and vet techs, because this act also recognizes vet techs as a registered profession, and that's very important. We are facing in this province a shortage of veterinarians across the board, but that shortage is more pronounced in rural Ontario and even more pronounced in northern Ontario. And that can have grave consequences. Now, this act itself does not address that, but I think to have a good conversation about the veterinary medicine in the province, you need to think about that. This act basically sets out the parameters of how veterinarians and vet techs are to be regulated. So to make sure that they perform at a certain quality level, that they have an administration body to ensure that their members perform at a certain quality level. And that's very important because it's important in all jobs, but certainly when you're dealing with living things, it's incredibly important. And that's basically what this act does. Anyone who goes into veterinary medicine, whether as a veterinarian or as a vet tech, it's a calling, and it's a tough job, because to do that job you have to love animals, and you are going to lose animals. Another important part of this bill is the vet tech part, that vet techs are going to be a regulated profession. Actually, one of my staff is a trained vet tech. And it's very interesting talking to her because of her lived experience. Kathy Pfeiffer is her name. And one of the reasons, and I hope I don't get in big trouble for saying this, but one of the reasons that she makes her great at being a constituency assistant, but one of the things that I didn't realize was so hard about being a vet tech is the personal part. So if I focused on large animal vets, because that's but if you think about small animals, companion animals, right, they're part of your family. And if grave decisions have to be made, or if very grave things are going to happen, regardless of what to do, you are dealing with the same, it's the same as losing any other family member. And vets deal with that too, but vet techs deal with that a lot. And if you think about that, that is really, really tough. Like the social part of that, right? They deal with people, so if your companion animal, your dog, your cat, has disease, or it's hit by something, or attacked by a coyote, or right, it's all consuming, and that falls on the vet tech. And if you think about that, and I never really fully till I talked to Kat, and she's really good at talking to people, and it comes really naturally to her, and I didn't really clue in why until she started talking about being a vet tech. And that actually, in some ways, a constituency assistant was almost easier than a vet tech, and that's saying something. Because we all have people in our offices who who do intake, and I can't speak for other offices. I'll speak for mine. My staff does the majority of the casework, and they know more about most things than I do. And they take the toughest stuff, they get it first. This act is an example of the way legislation should work. You time to update something, you consult it widely, you bring it to the legislature and have good debate about it, you talk about the issue itself, the issues themselves, and hopefully at the end of the day you have that the people of Ontario are better served at the end of the day, and in this case also animals. When you call the vet, you expect, and we were very lucky because in my history, we've always had great vets. They were professional. They were part of our farm. But you expect that. You expect, and you shouldn't have to worry about that. You shouldn't have to, and that's where a college is really important. That you know, and that's why the college, so that the veterinary techs, why they're now a regulated profession under this bill. That's also very important. So that you know when someone has a designation that they've had the training to actually be worthy of that designation. That's really important. That's basically, and I said this at the start, that is basically the premise of what this is a regulatory bill about regulating vets and regulating vet techs. But we certainly have some great ones. So my first vet was Dr. John Pierce, and John taught me. Without John Pierce, I don't think I would have been a farmer. And I didn't always appreciate some of the way he did it. But Dr. Connie Dancho, Dr. Lance Males were my later vets at Temiskaming Veterinary Clinic. And again, they taught me the value of doing regular herd health, the long-term value. And I don't know if they're famous, but they certainly made a huge difference in the farmers in Temiskaming. Thank you.